Of course, the University of the Gambia coming up, and the actual construction of it coming up, the completion of the first phase of the Banjul International Airport development, and of course the improvement on the lighting system. These are most of these things are taken for granted by Gambians, and so people hardly notice them or make comments about them. But a lot has been done over the past 12 months from the last celebration. Yeah.
Right. Would you cite any specific area where you would have wanted to see major changes and so far this couldn't happen?
3 areas: health, agriculture, and the energy sector. I would have loved to see more drastic changes for the better, but some of the resources have to be diverted to cushion the effect of food shortages due to the very bad rainfall pattern that we have. Some of the, in fact, the projects we had for the RVTH then and now EFSTH, to modernize and build a diagnostic center where we will be able to take care of a lot of ailments and then have a correct diagnosis and, of course, treatment if possible. Where it is not possible, the patient would only be referred for that type of treatment and not diagnosis. And unfortunately, those funds have to be used for buying seeds, getting food for people that were supposed to suffer.
Yeah, on the economic front, we've seen some fluctuation in terms of the stability of the dollar, especially against the US dollar, and the government did come up with measures here and there. Would you like to comment about that? Would you talk about the genesis of that problem or issue?
The fluctuation of the dollar exchange rate has nothing to do with the economic reality. There are some people out there who are bent on sabotaging the economy. You know, several attempts have been made to destabilize this country, and they have failed. And so the only way they think they can bring problems to this country is to sabotage the economy, which we are not going to tolerate. We are pinpointing we now know exactly who and who are behind this. And we are going to take drastic action against them after a while, because we're trying to know the entire net. Because if you remember, one of the principal kingpins of this economic sabotage has been expelled from the country. But we realized that we made a big mistake, because it's like just taking one criminal out of the gang when you have other. It's like when you fight terrorism. You get only the head out, another person steps into his shoes. And so if you really want to be effective, you have to know the extent of the gang and at least make sure that you deal with the people that are indispensable in the criminal operation of the gang. When you take those people out, you neutralize the gang, and this is exactly what we are going to do. But it has nothing to do. Anybody who tells you that it has to do with the economy of the country is lying. It is not. It is not true. It has nothing to do with the economic realities of the country. For example, the dollar was $31 years. In fact, it was 30. Then moved to 31.5 for a week. And once we went, when I was away, I think this was my last trip in Japan, on a daily basis, the dollar was increasing. Within 3 days, it was 35, 36, 37. Obviously, that doesn't reflect economic collapsing that fast. It has nothing to do with the economy. You have so many players in the system that are also not Gambians. Now, their only intention is to make as much money as possible. And the same criminal band that has destroyed the economies of most West African countries are the same criminal gangs that are here now. And what do? They just set up gangs and speculate. They have cell phones, they call. Today, the dollar, this is what we should ask for. And these are foreigners. As I said before, we welcome foreigners to this country. They can live as peacefully as any Gambian in this country, as long as their stay in this country would not be to the detriment of the Gambian people. And so, enough is enough. We know who they are, and we're going to take appropriate action. It's not that the dollars are not available. There are a lot of dollars, but people are sitting on them, and most of these people are foreigners. So you will see what we are going to do, because now at least we know 80% of the gang and what they do.
And this also has an attendant effect on the price of basic commodities. I'm sure there are measures as well to take care of.
Obviously, the dollar is the main currency used in international trade. And so people, all the importers in this country use the dollar to import their commodities. Now, obviously, if the price of the value of the dollar is so high, it's also going to reflect in their goods. So, obviously, it has a direct impact, negative impact on the availability and affordability of basic commodities, and that's why we're going to, even if that was not the case, we're going to take drastic action, because the whole scheme is criminal.
Okay. Now let's talk about the theme for this year's celebration, which centers around living by the dictates of our religion. That's an interesting thing, especially for an outsider who might be tempted to ask, okay, the Gambia is supposedly a secular state, and yet still the state is putting so much emphasis on religion. Do you like to comment about that?
First, it is even haram for anybody to call yourself secular, because secular is not a religion. We live by our religion. Irrespective of where you stay, you are either a Muslim or a Christian in Africa. So the idea of secularism is non-existent in this country. We are not a secular state. We are Muslims and Christians living in this country. So secularism has nothing to do with that. Everybody expects to be judged by the Almighty Allah. And so you cannot be judged by being secular or non-secular. What is important is you go and face the Almighty Allah, the ultimate day of judgment, based on the religion that you follow. And so secularism has nothing to do with my religion and my belief and as an individual. So outsiders can say whatever they want, because in the first place they also don't believe in any religion, so they will not understand what I'm talking about. But to solve all the problems of this world today, from nefarious, ungodly attributes, vices, violence, if you live by your religion, what your religion says you should be, if you are a follower of that religion, I think the world would live in peace. Christians live according to the teachings of the Bible. Muslims live according to the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ and the Quran. We will live in peace. Because there are so many confusing ideologies that are being imposed. Now, I don't think it is fair also for somebody outside of this African continent to come and tell Africans how we should live. After all, the issue of governance, human rights, started after we have gained our independence. When we were colonial subjects, the idea of democracy and human rights were never non-existent. And so the issue of parliamentary democracy was also non-existent, despite the fact that the colonial master had his parliament. Tell me in the Gambia where the colonial parliament was. But even during that time, they called the colonial administration secular. But Muslims and Christians